today we actually are going to be looking at the reality of fish bowls. It's a debatable topic and an interesting topic as well, but I'll let you all be the judge of it. A lot of people actually fancy glass bowls to house aquatic pets, as that doesn't occupy space and it doesn't break the bank. Thinking they are cost effective compared to a tank, but there are two ways of doing things, the right way and the experienced way. Now the question arises, what do you mean by the experienced way, right? We have two ways of doing things. One is the right way and one is the experienced way of doing things. Well, you invest your effort, time and money and then realize a certain way of doing things doesn't work. So what I mean to say is, when you kind of pitch in, right, you kind of invest in a big bowl and you invest in some pebbles, some plants, then in the fish also especially. And then what happens, the fish tend to die on you, right? And why do they die on you is because they are not to be kept in fish bowls in the first place, because one, they lack oxygen, they lack aeration, they lack temperature regulation, and they lack space, mainly space, correct? So that's one way of doing things. And you're back to square one, but this time I'm here to tell you what not to do in order for your fish to survive. So coming to space constraint, people usually tend to decorate the bowl, which is already small, with gravel or blinding colored pebbles, especially artificial plants as well. And artificial plants in a bowl is pretty risky, is because one, when the fish tends to move around, one, the plastics at times scratch the fish and that hurts the fish, right? And that leads to infection, again illness, stress, and eventually death. And now when it comes to filtration, now with filtration what happens is, without a filter, the fish excreta, which is feces and urine, yeah, you heard me right, fish can pass feces and urine that might not be visible to the naked eye. Again, it's due to the water, it kind of mixes in the water, right? And it remains in the water without frequent water changes and beneficial bacteria. So what happens is, when there is beneficial bacteria present in the water, it kind of cycles the water for you. Wherein it kind of, not when I say cycles the water, it keeps ammonia and nitrate at bay. It doesn't let it increase, the levels don't increase. Without a filtration, what happens is, without beneficial bacteria and filtration and regular water changes, there is a spike in ammonia and nitrate, which literally tends to kill the fish, right? It kind of affects the gills in the beginning, and then it kind of affects the internal organs, and eventually it leads to death. And then what happens, since most fish are classified as ectothermic, the ambient environmental temperature determines their body temperatures. So what this means is, when they are ectothermic, the fish will not be, the fish tend to adapt, right, to the temperature of their surroundings. Say for example, if the water is pretty cold, right, or it's pretty warm, it kind of adapts to the temperature of the water. So that is the reason, mainly especially when you kind of keep goldfish, you tend to keep any fish for that matter. When I had Oscars, right, when I had the clan back then, I used to house them in a temperature between a moderate temperature of 25 to 26 degrees Celsius. So any tropical fish will need to be housed in that particular temperature. That way it helps them thrive, it helps them digest their food, it helps them be active and move around. Or what happens is, if you see most of the time, right, you go to these aquarium stores, you kind of look at Oscars lying on the floor. Right, half the time most of the people think they're actually dead or going to die. That's not the case. Most probably it would be missing a heater, and the temperature is pretty rock bottom. When it's pretty low, that's what happens to fish. They kind of are lethargic, and that's one of the reasons why a heater is very important, to regulate the temperature. And oxygen. So what happens with regards to oxygen is, when there is no ripples in the water, what happens, the carbon dioxide cannot escape the water, and it's trapped, and the oxygen cannot enter the water, it doesn't mix with the water. So what happens is, they go to the top of the surface and they kind of keep gasping for air on the top, right? So that is one of the main reasons why you shouldn't keep fish in a glass bowl, right? And again, So that would be people thinking, why would we need to, why would we need a tank for a single goldfish or a guppy or a betta? Like I mentioned earlier, there is a right way of doing things and an experienced way of doing things.